All right, we are going.
All right. Well, we're on to week 5. 2-2-1 last week. We can't really say improve, but we move to 8-11-1 overall. Um, that that Ravens game was our push. That was a bit annoying. Felt like we kind of had that the whole time, but collapsed down the stretch. Lamar throws that pick. Bills march down the field. Take it. Sucks. Um, Jaguars game was weird too. That was sloppy. I mean, I thought we were in a good, comfortable position for a good portion of that game. And what did Trevor Lawrence have? 5 turnovers?
Something like that. He had a couple fumbles for sure, and then a couple interceptions
Couple
as well.
couple picks. I think it was 5 in total. Five turnovers. I mean, it was raining. It was sloppy there, but yeah, that was an ugly one. What was the other game we lost?
Um, let's see if I can find it in the notes.
Panthers
Panthers.
versus. Oh God, thought that was a rat line.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't look
uh,
too bad in the first half, and then it's
didn't
just one of
it
those that was just
didn't?
kind of gradual, and then eventually it was
Hmm.
just kind of too late.
Yep, but we got the Seahawks, we got the Titans. Um, Two good picks there. Couple, yeah. So
Yeah, and I mean, I think we continue to read games well. I think it's also still early season, still a lot to learn from. I think something that we discussed after the games was, maybe in hindsight, we can actually say that the Ravens pick wasn't a good pick because, I mean, one, you're looking at two equal teams. I mean, I think, on a neutral site, I'd say the Bills are probably favored.
hmm
But we've also just seen, in years past where the Ravens, they really seem to stomp the weak competition, and then it's kind of 50-50 when it comes to the close games. And
Yep.
also this season we're starting to see more and more that the Ravens kind of, I don't know if they take their foot off the gas in the second half or if they just don't have it in
hmm
the second half, whether it's fatigue or focus or whatever. But maybe in hindsight you can say it actually wasn't that great of a pick just because of those things. They're going against a good team, and then you got to figure it's going to be close. And at some point, when they get in the second half, obviously they just weren't able to put it together. So it's little things to learn from as well. And we obviously almost came out of it with the win, and we had a great start to that bet. But like I said, in hindsight, we got to kind of call it what it is and say, you know what, maybe when we see those types of spots, that's something we actually avoid in the future.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. No. And yeah, that we've talked about that trend before, and whether we just didn't think of it, ignored it, whatever it is. Yeah, I think probably could have sniffed that out. But again, hindsight's 2020. So yeah, we move on.
Yep.
All right, you want to dive into this week's games?
Yeah.
All right, so first up is Packers -8 against the Giants. They're in London.
Yeah, this is kind of a pass for me. I don't know if you have a strong feeling on either side. I do lean New York. It is a lot of points. I like them getting the touchdown there. And then some, of course, with the 8-point spread. But yeah, I just feel like in this type of game, the Giants having a guy like Saquon playing the way that he's playing, that could honestly
Hmm.
just be enough to propel them to keep it close and, maybe keep it to just being a touchdown game. Aaron Rodgers drives down, wins the game at the end or something. But yeah, I think just in this type of position, being in London, I think it's just a lot of points for the Packers to cover.
Yeah, I didn't really put a whole lot of thought into this game because being in London and just having a hard time reading the Packers right now. And then I was thinking very similar to what you were just saying about the Giants with Saquon. It's like, I mean, he's back to being, what we knew him to be. And maybe that is enough, but, it is Daniel Jones, it is the Giants. So who knows?
Yeah,
and it's in London.
I just I don't feel like coming off of a game where they were 9.5 point favorites at home, and that was with Hoyer being considered the starter. I mean, if it was
I
Zappy,
know.
not that Hoyer or Zappy is necessarily worth a touchdown, but if that was Zappy making the start, that would have been like a 15.5 point spread or something. And
Yeah.
I don't think London's necessarily the place to get right, and after that type of game. So yeah, I mean, if this is not a game that we like, then whatever. But yeah, I just feel like it's maybe too many points.
Yeah, I also don't feel like getting up at 6:30 in the morning to watch it.
Yeah,
If I'm being totally honest. So I'm good to pass the game.
yeah.
All right, next up, Saints at home, -5.5. They're hosting the Seahawks.
Yeah, so a big thing that for me has always been these 5.5 point spreads.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like whenever I go against that instinct and I take the favorite, that's when it kind of comes back. That's when it always comes back to bite me in the ass. The only thing that kind of had me leaning the Saints at first was I feel like it was another trend that we had always picked up on where the Saints, they tend to kind of pick things up around this time of year where I not necessarily a slow start, but they might start 1-2, and this scenario they're 1-3, but
Yeah.
then they go on kind of big winning streaks. But at the same time, that's with um guys like Drew Brees being their quarterback and not Jameis, who might not even be playing this week. Michael Thomas might not even be playing this week, but I just don't know if those are the same Saints. I mean, I know it's Dennis Allen, and I know that at the beginning of the
Mm-hmm.
year I was kind of big on just the continuity there with him being an internal hire, but I think that the Saints might be closer to being a rebuilding team than they are, being a sneaky competitive team. So I kind of like the Seahawks here because I think the Seahawks are underrated. I was saying that last week. I think they're scrappy. I like the way that they play because I think the big thing that they do is they take care of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Gino's not turning the ball over, and he's playing really good quarterback right now. And I think in this spot, right? I mean, Marcus Lattimore lined up on the outside, but I think DK Metcalf can handle that, and they also have Tyler Lockett who's been playing pretty well, and I know guys have been pretty down on Lockett just because he doesn't have Russ throwing him the deep ball anymore, but it seems like he's kind of finding his spot now in that offense with Gino. So yeah, I mean, I was kind of iffy just because of the Saints always seeming to kind of figure it out around this time. And, they could still win in a close game. They could still win a field goal game here. But I like the Seahawks here to kind of keep it close like we've seen them kind of play this year and then, maybe even win this one outright on the road.
Yeah, all good points, and I think the other thing, keep in mind too, the Saints are playing after the London game, no bye.
Yeah.
Um, Teams are 2-3 against the spread with no bye after the London game. I do, just to reiterate, I think a couple things you said. I think Seattle's looked good, especially the last couple weeks. One of the things I read a couple weeks ago was they were really committing to just kind of picking up the pace on offense, um, and just trying to move more quickly. And I think that's helping in terms of just the way that offense is moving. I mean, you look at the way they played last week, and even what they did in that game against the Falcons. That seems to be something I think that's helping that offense click. And yeah, New Orleans is still banged up. I think Kamara is going to play this week, but it's like, how good is he going to be? We don't even know who the quarterback's going to be. They may not have Michael Thomas. So even if you get a guy like Kamara back in there, and even if somebody like Jameis plays, like, how is that offense going to click? There's just been so many kind of moving pieces in and out with all the injuries. So, even if they squeak one out at home, it's like, taking the 5.5 with a team that's been playing really well against a team that's banged up, coming off a long flight back home from London. I like the Seahawks.
Yeah. I mean, I just see this being a one-score game, and that might be 3 points. It might be 7 points, but that's a risk that I'm willing to take because I think the Seahawks could also just win it outright. So that could also be 3 points in the Seahawks' favor.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, just looking at this, it's like, is it worth taking on the kind of point and a half amount of room that we're giving ourselves on the Saints side? It's like, I don't think so. I'd rather take the Seahawks here. And like I said, I like them to win outright. So give me those 5.5 points.
Cool. All right. Next game, Jaguars at home. They're laying 7 to the Texans.
Yeah. So this wasn't a game that made my top 5, but I do lean the Texans here. They are 3-1 against the spread. The one time that they didn't cover was last week against LA, and they made a really good
Mm-hmm.
game out of that. I think the Jags are maybe a little too hot right now. I think that there needs to be a point in time where they just kind of come a little bit back to earth. I don't think they're 3-1 dominant like they are, like they're looking right now.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I also think the Texans, I don't think they're 0-3-1 bad. I think they're a little bit better than that. And I think it would be a little bit of a steal if they were to win this. And of course, that would be a big upset with them being 7-point dogs. But I think that this is an opportunity where maybe they can shock the Jags and take it outright. But I think that they could still keep it close, and I think they can keep it within that touchdown. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't love it just because I could see it just being a touchdown game or something, and or being kind of something similar to that Chargers game. But I definitely lean the Texans side here.
Yeah, Jacksonville has not been a touchdown favorite since week 8 of 2019 against the Jets. It's also the last time that Jacksonville covered as a favorite.
Yeah.
Houston has won 8 straight meetings. They're 6-2 against the spread in those meetings. The last 4 times Jacksonville was a favorite. Kind of already said this, but it lost the game outright with 3 of those losses coming against Houston.
Yeah.
So there's a number of trends that obviously sway in the Texans' favor. Um, I don't know. This just feels like too big of a number to pass up. With the Texans getting 7, I don't know that there's that much of a difference between these two teams that Jacksonville should be laying 7. I think the Texans are scrappy. They're competitive. They've hung in a number of games. I think you've got a Jaguars team that's coming off a really bad loss, and I think to your point, a little too hot right now. Maybe a bit of a cooling off period. So yeah, Texans plus 7 was intriguing to me. I don't know if it's a love, but that's
Yeah,
definitely
because
where I was leaning.
the only thing that scares me is that it feels like a game where maybe we're inside the number all game, and then it just takes one score at the end to suddenly lose it, and
Yeah.
it all of a
Yep.
sudden it's a 10-point Jags win or something. That's the only thing that scares me there. I mean, I think it's definitely a good teaser play. If you can get
Mm-hmm.
them up to like 13 and a half, 13.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
but I mean, yeah, it's definitely the side that I lean. I just don't know if I love it enough inside my top 5.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. Let's keep rolling. Next game, Bills minus 14 at home against the Steelers. It's a huge number.
Yeah, so originally I was kind of thinking it was going to be like maybe like a 10-point spread, but at the same time I wasn't really factoring in where the game was being played.
Mm-hmm.
It is at Buffalo. Um, and right away my knee-jerk reaction to that was, well, I thought it was going to be 10, it's 14, so maybe I should be looking at the Steelers here. But I do kind of think that maybe the Bills just route Kenny Pickett in his debut here. Von Miller had that quote where I guess Pickett said that they were underdogs or something. And then Von Miller said that nobody gives a shit about the spread. They're not they like nobody views the Steelers as underdogs or any shit like that. And that tells me that they're just gonna come out here and say, well, let's just beat the shit out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not take them lightly. I don't like definitely doesn't mean let's play down to them. It sounds like they're being very conscious about how they're approaching this game. So it's maybe too big of a number to hop on, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills just completely shit on the Steelers here at home.
Yeah. I, I was kind of leaning Bills here. Josh Allen, 10-4-2 is a 7-point fave. He's 6-2-2 as a double-digit favorite. Last year, rookie QBs were 0-5 against the spread in their first start. It does feel like a kind of a get right spot for. I mean, I know they're coming off a win, but I think the last few weeks they've kind of looked a little shaky. They've been in some tough games. Maybe haven't necessarily gotten off to like the super dominant start that, especially coming off that opening game against the Rams. But this just feels like a spot against a rookie quarterback at home. They could go in a route. I know Tomlin's track record as a dog, he's tough, but I think that record's going to be tested a lot this year.
Yeah.
And I don't know how sustainable it's going to be. So, yeah, I don't know. I do see Bill's route here, but again, it's a big number. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's one I want to take.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that we talked about last year because I kept pointing this out, but um, I do think that it is a little overrated to be scared off of big numbers in fear of like a
Hmm.
backdoor cover or something because, like I would always say, it's like closer games, people are looking to cut it down. If it's like a 21-point win or something, teams are maybe a little less motivated than if it's a 10-point game to like, hey, let's get a touchdown on the board or something. So,
Hmm.
being at that, I could see this being, the Bills just get out to an early lead and kind of coast by on that. But, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're just sitting on it. It just means, they're not as aggressive and they're just kind of holding back and just field goal, touchdown, something like that. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it's just something that we put aside and come back to. It wasn't in my top
Hmm.
five, but I definitely do like it here. I think it's a good spot.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's keep rolling. This can be one we come back to.
Yep.
All right, next game we got the Bucs -8.5 at home against the Falcons.
Yeah, so I was checking, and maybe you could fact check me on this because I was just looking quick on Action Network, but I believe that Brady, because this is year 3, right? Brady in Tampa.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
because I just checked the past 2 years, but Brady's 4-0 against the spread against Atlanta while in Tampa Bay. He's got an average win margin of 15.25 points. So the spread puts us comfortably there. The Bucs are also at home. They're coming off that primetime loss, and I think that coming off the loss, and is that 2 in a row for them or no?
Yeah, two in a row. They lost to
It's
Green
two,
Bay the week
so it's
before.
2 in a row. So you're gonna like Brady coming in on that spot, but I also feel like they were kind of finding something with the offense, and Brady started to show some life. Just with his stats, and he was starting to air it out a little bit more. I
Hmm.
think he was definitely happy to get Mike Evans back for sure. Um, and I also feel like, I mean, part of it too is, Brady going through the divorce and everything. This is kind of all he has. And
Hmm.
I like the Bucks a lot in this spot. I think that Brady just keeps kicking the Falcons' ass and I mean, obviously he's got even, going back to his New England days, he's got a good track record against them. So I like that trend
Hmm.
to continue, and I like the Bucks here. I don't really care what the number is.
um, yeah, just to build on your Brady against the Falcons stat, he's 9-1 against the spread in the regular season and playoffs against Atlanta in his career.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, your 4-0 number I think is right. I think the loss I think came as a
Yeah.
Patriot, but yeah, he's Atlanta too, the only undefeated team left against the spread. That's gotta go at some point.
Yeah,
Um,
and by Pitts, I don't know if he's been practicing this week. Patterson went to the
yep,
IR, of course.
yep.
So it's like I just see
Um,
them, and I also watching the Falcons game last week, I just felt like they've kind of plateaued with Mariota at quarterback. And that doesn't necessarily mean that he can't still have good weeks, but I
yeah.
think, maybe the growth there, it's just he's clearly not the long-term answer. And I think that there is a chance that we see Ritter at some point in the season. I'm not saying that this week is going to be the week, but
Hmm.
I do feel like the Falcons, they were kind of being interesting, right? I think they're 2-2 right now. Is that right? And
Yep.
I feel like this is maybe where they come back down to earth a little bit, and we see them start to struggle. I think this Bucks defense is too good. I don't think they're in a spot where they can play down to a team and take them lightly, like they
Yeah.
might in this spot. I think they come out, look to make a statement, kind of beat up on the little nerd or something, and kind of get their confidence back.
Yeah. Kevin Cole had I was listening to his adjusted scores podcast, and he was saying the second week in a row that Atlanta's overachieved.
Yeah,
Um, and it's also the second week in a row they won. So I think by adjusted score margin, I think they should be out four. But yeah, with Patterson out, you mentioned Pitts too, bit of a question mark. So Atlanta comes into this a little hobbled while you've got the Bucs who just continue to get healthier. And I did think actually, Brady and that Bucs offense looked really good last week. I mean, the fact that they even hung in that game as much as they did, the
yeah. I
two
mean, even the
turnovers,
fact that you pretty much spotted them 7 points to start the game.
totally,
Yeah,
totally.
that fumble kickoff.
Yeah. So yeah, I love the Bucs here. Love.
Yep.
All right, cool. That's one. All right, next game we got Vikings at home, -7 against the Bears.
So to
So
me, yeah, to me, this is just a spot where the Vikings have to win in a blowout. The Bears, they're very bad. Justin Fields has shown no growth from last year, and he was a guy that everybody thought was good. He was going to be the guy that took that step, and he's just not doing that. And this offense really has nothing going. And I feel like the Vikings, if they want to continue to assert themselves as a good team and as a playoff team that should be taken seriously in these Super Bowl discussions, this is a game that they have to win by a ton. It's not too sexy to me. The 7-point spread. At the end of the day, it is Kirk Cousins. There could always be some type of hijinks that go on, but yeah, I like the Vikings here because I like kind of following my preseason thought that this is not the same old Vikings. They're gonna figure it out. They're gonna be different with this new coach, and I feel like this is a good chance to make a statement. Against a team like the Bears, a divisional rival.
not a primetime game,
Yep.
so that's a good thing. Yeah, I was definitely leaning Vikings here. I mean, they haven't covered in their last three games, but then again, the Bears are 3-9 against the spread as dogs under Fields. You've already talked about Fields and just how unimpressive he looks. I think to the first point you made coming right out of the gate, like if there was ever going to be kind of a statement game for the Vikings to kind of get back into the serious discussion about being a Super Bowl contender, like this is it. Like this is the week to kind of really get things rolling and kind of catapult yourself back into that discussion. So I mean, if they can't win this game handily, like they're not a contender.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just a game week layoff because they're also coming back from London without the bye.
I mean, I did say, teams are 2-3,
Yeah,
and we're going against the Saints, so we could go with the Vikings
yeah.
here, and then
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, it's not a love for me. It's just, I feel like I said, I just feel like the Vikings, they have like, kind of any care about their resume or how they're perceived. It's like, you have to come out
yeah,
and you have to make a statement here.
yeah, yep,
But yeah, I mean, it's not a pick. It's not necessarily, it's not a love for me.
yeah, yep. Well, I'm gonna mark it as a lean,
Yep.
and then we can come back if we need to towards the end.
Yeah.
All right, next game we have Titans -2.5 against the Commanders.
So I like the Titans a lot here. Really the only note I had on it was just keep riding the Titans, keep fading the Commanders. I think the Titans might still be a little undervalued right now. I think that they're still a team. I actually feel at ease now. I was not feeling good the first couple weeks after I took them to win the division, but now I feel fine because I think the Jags are going to come back down to earth. I do not think the Colts are very good at all. They do have a good defense, but the offense is just horrible. I don't see that getting better. And then the Texans, I think, are at this point out of it. So I actually feel good about the Titans. I think that this is kind of what we were saying last week and maybe the week before. I'm not exactly sure when we started talking about it, but I think this is when the Titans, they just go on this run, and then by week 8 or 9, you're like, oh shit, the Titans are the 2 seed right now. How the hell did that happen? So I like the Titans here, especially inside of the 3 number here. I just like to keep riding that.
Yeah, I agree. We said a couple weeks ago that it seems like they're going to kind of turn things around, and they're definitely trending that way. Washington seems to be trending in the opposite direction, so being inside of 3, not too worried in terms of Tennessee being on the road. It's not like they're going all that far anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like this. I think just they'll continue to keep the same formula, pound it on the ground. And yeah, Washington looks terrible right now. So I like this pick.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Dolphins -3.5 at the Jets. No Tua, right?
Yeah, Tua is still out, so Teddy Bridgewater's playing. And that's part of the reason why I actually lean the Dolphins here. Teddy Bridgewater, I don't know what his exact record is, but that has been his thing so far in his career that he covers the spread. I did not think that the Dolphins offense looked all that impressive with him in. But at the same time, he is coming off the bench after Tua was, like crippled on the field. So there is somewhat of a shock factor there. There is
Mm-hmm.
just the unpreparedness there because when you're the backup, obviously you're supposed to always be ready, but at the same time, you're never expecting to actually go in. But now I guess the best case scenario for that is the fact that they've had 10 days to kind of prepare. So I think that they have the opportunity to build the offense back to Teddy Bridgewater's strengths instead of trying to go with the game
Mm-hmm.
plan that they had built for Tua. So I still like the Dolphins here. I wasn't really impressed by Zach Wilson's return. Obviously the trick play where he caught the touchdown. They did have that comeback, but at the same time, I don't think the Steelers are all that impressive of a team. And until that fourth quarter, and I believe it was just the final drive where Zach Wilson let him down. I just didn't think that Wilson was playing that great. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's kind of what we were saying, about the Browns in certain spots earlier in the year, where this is a team that's built to win the Super Bowl. They're just missing their quarterback. And, of course, we're talking about different talent levels when it comes to Tua and Deshaun, and then, also, Brissett and Teddy Bridgewater. But I think those are actually two of the more elite backups in the league. But this is a team that's still built to win, and this was a team that was winning. And I think if they had Tua for the whole game, I think they probably beat the Bengals as well. So I think the Dolphins, they have to look to keep rolling, move past everything that happened in the past week, and steamroll the Jets here.
Some good trends in favor of the Dolphins too. They're 7-1 outright and against the spread in the past 8 meetings. Covered 4 straight road meetings. The Jets are 1-5 outright and against the spread in his past 6 games following a win. It's 1-4 under Salah. Jets are 3-7 against the spread as a home dog under him. The Teddy Bridgewater numbers, you said it earlier, but the particulars 42-21 against the spread in his career. It's the best mark by any quarterback with at least 40 starts in the Super Bowl era. He's 5-2 against the spread as a road favorite. Yeah, I think the Dolphins are the pick. Kevin Cole adjusted scores. He had the Jets losing in a blowout last week, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of supports your comment earlier of, Wilson, not even really looking that good. I, I mean, I still think Dolphins are a better team, more elite team, even with Bridgewater in there. So, yeah, 10 days to prepare. I think it's a good pick.
Yeah, and also I think there's always something to the fact that Tyreek Hill almost came to the Jets, and he just seems like a guy that likes to get his back, and
A real
even
spike
though
guy.
even though it was really his choice, I just wouldn't be shocked if he had 150 yards or something.
Yeah, that might be good for a DFS play.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Okay, good pick. All right, next game, Chargers at Cleveland. Cleveland's getting 2.5.
Yeah, I like the Browns here. I think this is a good spot for them. I think it's kind of like we were just referring to, where they are a team that's built to win, and obviously we've seen them be a little bit shaky at different times, but I think this is a perfect spot to jump on them. I think it's kind of tapping into last year's theory about beating the Chargers, where you can control the game with the run, you can hold on to the ball. I think that their offense can do that, the Browns offense that is. And I think they can also prevent the big play. I don't know if Keenan Allen's playing this week. I didn't check. I like it a lot if he's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't really change my mind if he is. Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those where, I think people might be looking to hop on the Chargers there. They see the Chargers -2.5. I think there's still that public perception of them being, this world beating team, but they're not. And, I last week we talked about having our doubts about Staley in that offense and, if he's really
Mhm.
the guy for them. And this just feels like a home dog spot. I like the Browns as home dogs here.
Yeah, you also got a West Coast team traveling East Coast early game. Um, yeah, I like the Browns here too. Um, Kevin Cole adjusted score, had them winning 28-23 last week. I mean, what are they, 2-2 right now?
Yeah.
They could be 4-0.
Yeah.
They could, like uh they've played well, and I think their brand of football plays really well in this matchup. And obviously the Chargers got the win last week, but they're still there's still some injury concerns. I mean, Eckler kind of broke out, and I think that was huge for them, but they're still dinged up a little bit. So I like the Browns here getting points at home.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just seems difficult to pass up.
Yeah.
All right. Um, this is a weird one. I really don't understand how this is possible, and maybe that's why we should take them. But the Patriots are laying 3 at home against the Lions this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of fair when you really break it down. I mean, the Lions are still missing Swift. He's for sure out. I don't think Amon-Ra's practicing yet. Chark hasn't been practicing either. So we're looking at that depleted offense that they had. And, sure, they put up a ton of points last week, but I think that was just the game script against the Seahawks kind of called for that. And I think that's kind of what the Lions dictated with, their defense being so bad. But I think this is one where maybe the Pats, especially with their defense being much better, I think they can kind of take control of the game. And, I think they can make this a low scoring game and they can score when they have to. They can run the shit out of the ball. Mac Jones has been practicing.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have this theory that it's maybe something where they're just like skirting some type of rule by not putting him on the IR and, just having him, because he's listed as a limited participant, but he's just doing like side drills and stuff. So it could just be him
Yeah.
rehabbing and there's probably something, where they save money by not putting him on an IR or something. But, I mean, I really ultimately wasn't that impressed with Zappy, in his
Mm-hmm.
first game. But I mean, all things considered, I guess you have to be impressed. I mean, versus Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau,
Yeah.
there's a 0% chance you see in the field, and you come out and do that. And I think it speaks to Belichick's ability to coach. The fact
Mm-hmm.
that because like in those spots, right? Like I have no problem with them not throwing the ball on fourth down or doing any of that stuff because in those spots you have to play not to lose.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are stripping, the situation of context and they're looking at it as if we had Mac Jones out there at quarterback. But it's like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the plays, it's like there was that third down play where Zappy, he ended up spinning and rolling out of the pocket and rolling right with Hunter Henry and then throwing the ball. And then the defender on Henry dove and almost intercepted it. And when you look at it right before he spun out of the pocket, he easily could have hit Henry on the slant. It's like, this is a rookie. He's making his first start in training camp. He had to learn how to take snaps from the center because in college, he only played from the shotgun. Um, so it's like, there's still a little bit of a learning curve there, but I also just, this is like a game that Belichick doesn't lose. And, Belichick's a million times the coach that Dan Campbell is. That Lions defense is just horrendous. And, especially if we're going to see a very stripped down version of their offense,
Mm-hmm.
that just sounds like a field day for Belichick. So it's not a game that I necessarily love just because there is the uncertainty with the injuries and everything, but I definitely do lean the Pats here.
Yeah, I kind of said at the top of this thing, like I didn't understand at first. I didn't understand the line so much that I'm just like I should probably just take the Pats.
Yeah.
And I think this might be like a couple weeks ago we took the Titans against the Raiders because we were just like Vrabel's the alpha. Like
Yeah.
he's just gonna fucking dominate McDaniels. And I feel like this is another one where it's like the coaching matchup is so lopsided. And Detroit does have a ton of injuries. And this could very well be the type of game where Belichick is just going to take the Lions down into the trenches, pull them down, and they're going to find themselves in quicksand and not know how to get out, panic, and then before you know it, they're going to be gone.
Yeah.
So and they're at home. So yeah, could be a good pick. Do you want to put it as a lean for now? And
Yeah.
okay. All right. Next game. 49ers traveling to Carolina. 49ers are laying 6.5.
Yeah, I don't have much interest in this game. I think the Panthers are maybe interesting just because I think it could get kind of wonky with San Francisco flying out and, just coming off that win against LA. But ultimately, this is just a pass for me.
It's a later game, so the time may not play too much of a
Yeah.
factor. Yeah, I listened to a really interesting conversation on the RJ Bell Dream podcast day, like him and Fezzik and whoever the third guy is. They had a really, really healthy debate about like are the Panthers dead or not? And there was a lot of disagreement. One guy on that panel was just like, this is a dead team walking. But I think it was Fezzik maybe who was saying that, Rule's actually a player's coach. And he does still have that locker room. And so, he did believe that those players are going to continue to compete. I mean, he is on the hot seat for sure. But it's not necessarily a situation where he's lost the locker room. He's still got the guys. He is a player's coach. So they are going to compete. But I don't know. I really don't know what side to take on this, because this is one of those weeks where I'm like, the 49ers look so good against the Rams that like I could see Jimmy G laying a dud this week.
Yeah.
They'll win, but they won't cover. But I also, just after getting burned by the Panthers last week, I'm not sure that I can take the Panthers in confidence.
Yeah.
So I think it is a pass.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's just interesting, the Niners with the travel, and then, just being inside of a touchdown just makes it interesting, because I feel like that's, just one of those where you're kind of setting out a trap for the public or something. But
Yeah.
not a game.
Yeah. Have you seen the stat going around too, where it's like, I think Rule has lost 24 in a row in which,
when they allow like more than 17 points or something.
Yeah. And their team total is 16 and a half this week.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's, that was like one of the other things they were debating is, if you're in Vegas and you walk up to a roulette table and it's hit on black 16 times in a row, what are you going to bet?
Yeah.
Which is like such a great question.
Yeah.
It's like, do you keep going with the trend, or do you bet against it, thinking this is the time? All right, we'll pass. Next game's Eagles -5.5. Ooh, another 5.5 game for you. Eagles -5.5, and they are traveling to Arizona against the Cardinals.
Yeah, I like the Cardinals here. Part of it is just that rule of thumb. The Cardinals, they are wearing the all black uniforms. They're debuting those, the black helmets. The Cardinals are also still in it with the division. Everybody in that division's 2-2. It kind of felt like a dead dream at the beginning of the season when they started off 0-2, right? But then they kind of found their groove and they brought it back. And this just feels like a letdown spot for the Eagles. I feel like, I don't know. I don't know if this is the team that's going to make a deep run. I think, they definitely can. I just feel like they're maybe flirting with it. I just get those vibes when I watch them play. I feel like we're going to see that loss sooner rather than later. And I feel like this might be the spot. I mean, I think it's that 5.5 point spread. I think it's just another number that they lay out there as a trap. Cardinals as home dogs here. I do like them here.
Yeah, it is an interesting, like, is it a trap line? Because I think it's easy to still be down on Arizona. But I mean, who they just got back? What is it, Rondale Moore?
Yeah.
So they added another weapon on offense.
They got Rondale Moore, and then next week is the last week of DeAndre Hopkins' suspension.
So they're getting close.
Yeah.
To maybe feeling like more of a complete team. And it's like, to be 2-2 with how bad they've looked, it's not, you got to feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
They got Seattle next week, and then they get Hopkins back, and they get the Saints. It's interesting. And and to your point, they're still in it. It's not like they're out of it with that division. So I don't know. I could lean there with you. I don't know if I love it. Let's mark it as a strong. Was that like one of your top 5?
That was in my top 5. Yeah.
That's in your top 5. Okay. All right. I'm gonna mark it. And then let's we'll see where we're at.
Yeah.
I mean, I think right now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, we've got 6 that we like already.
Yeah.
But let's see where we net out. Another 5.5 line. Actually, we've got the Rams at home -5.5 against the Cowboys.
Yeah. Once again, I'm on the underdog. I just haven't been impressed with the Rams at all.
Yeah.
I think the Cowboys, they've actually played very well with Cooper Rush.
Yeah, I agree.
I know that defense is kind of boom or bust, but I feel like these are the spots where they step up. I think this is a game that Trayvon Diggs gets an interception, that type of thing. That Rams offense is just very one dimensional. It's all Cooper Kupp. Higbee is getting a lot of targets as well, but you can just tell Stafford every time he drops back, he's looking Cooper Kupp. Allen Robinson, he's not, he's getting like 5 targets a game, but there's also that stat where he's getting like no separation. It's like he's like well below the league average in terms of separation he's getting on his routes. He's just not getting anything done, and then that backfield's very unimpressive as well. I just feel like that's a very flat team. I think that again, that 5.5 line, especially at home, I feel like the public's always just looking to jump all over those, and yeah, I think the Cowboys can just hang around. There's always, like I said, with this line, there's always that chance to get burnt, on a touchdown game, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I just feel like Dallas has been able to kind of, you know, show, step up and kind of show what they got. And they haven't completely fallen apart with Dak being out.
yeah. The other thing I really liked about Cowboys odds in this one is Rams offensive line is the 32nd ranked O line in PFF, and the Cowboys have the second best ranked defensive line. So that's an awful, awful matchup for the Rams.
Mhm.
They could get dominated in the trenches, which means it's going to be really tough for them to run the ball, which I mean it has been. And Stafford may have no time,
Yep.
and you've got a guy with no time, trying to throw to one target over and over again with a bum elbow, could actually make for a long day. I and I agree with that. Like the Cooper Rush thing, like I feel like I feel like it's a better offense with him in there. I feel like they're more productive.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that we have like a QB controversy on our hands. I mean, I'm sure Dak's going to come back in and just take it right back, but it's like you can't deny how good this team has looked with Cooper Rush in there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just
Um,
one of those things where I think part of what helps it is that he had that connection with Noah Brown just from working on the second team so much. And
yeah, yeah,
I think it's more that Cooper Rush, maybe he's just not as in love with certain receivers, maybe specifically CeeDee Lamb or something. But
not trying to
these guys,
force it.
yeah, like they still get their targets, but he's kind of taking what the defense gives them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
ultimately, I don't think there's going to be, any problem, giving the job back to Dak when he's healthy and ready to go. But yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I think it's just one of those where you're just happy you got a good backup quarterback, and in spots like this, your team doesn't
yeah,
completely fall apart just because you lost your quarterback.
yeah, yeah. All right, Cowboys is alike. Um, Next game. Oh, this may test our theory. Ravens at home -3 against the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm
Are
indifferent.
the Bengals a good team?
Yeah,
Is
I mean, I'm indifferent. I mean, I definitely lean the Ravens here just because I think that they win this one.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, we did talk about that trend, and I think maybe it is a stay away, or maybe it is something worth considering with the Bengals, just because I think it could still be a back and forth game, and just maybe that's just not really the Ravens' spot right now. But at the same time, I do just kind of stick to what I've been saying about the Bengals. I just don't think they're great. I don't know if they get right. I don't think Zach Taylor is that great of a coach, so I lean Harbaugh here as well. But yeah, I think it's kind of a pass for me, but I lean the Ravens.
yeah. This is a pass for me as well. I don't know. I don't know if I don't like the Ravens in another 3-point game. I'm just not comfortable with it. And to the point about the theory, I'm not sure yet on the Bengals. I don't know. Like I don't have a belief yet in terms of whether or not they're a good team or not a good team. So it's a little bit of I'd rather just pass and just continue to evaluate and see what they got.
Yeah.
So all right. Last game Monday night, Chiefs at home -7 against the Raiders.
Yeah, I don't have much of a read on this. It is a big number. I don't think the Raiders are very good, but I've also just watched enough football to know that, in a Monday night primetime spot like this, wouldn't be shocking if the Raiders just stepped up and, kept it close and, kept it ugly for the Chiefs. And, so I don't really love either side here.
Yeah. Um, Going back and looking at the history of these two, Last two games have been blowouts.
Yeah.
Last year, the Chiefs blew them out 41-14, 48-9. In 2020, 35-31 Chiefs. Raiders won 40-32. But that was a COVID year. Doesn't really
Yeah.
count. The year before, it was a couple more Chiefs blowouts. I mean, aside from 2020, it's been like pretty consistent Chiefs blowouts in these games.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is
Yeah,
it is
that's
a big
also,
number.
we're talking about the Gruden years. We're talking about Rich Bisaccia coaching, and
Yeah,
I mean, we've also, we've seen McDaniels have a lot of success coaching against the Chiefs. So I do think that, the new regime in this instance, maybe does say throw those stats out the window and not
yeah,
necessarily get married to them or anything. So that's why, I do feel like maybe in this spot, it is a little bit closer just given the context of it, but at the same time,
hmm
this could just be another Chiefs blowout.
What's the over under on this one?
Probably around like 50.
51.
Yeah.
Hmm. Might be a game. Just take the over and root for it.
Yeah.
Root for points.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Devontae in our league. I've got him in another league, so we can root for that. Yeah, I think it's a pass.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go back. Let's see. We've got so likes. We had Seahawks plus 5.5, the Bucs minus 8.5, Titans minus 2.5, Dolphins minus 3.5, Browns getting 2.5, the Cardinals getting 5.5, and the Cowboys getting 5.5. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7.
Yeah.
Then we had some leans to the Texans plus 7, Bills minus 14, Vikings minus 7, and Pats minus 3.
Yeah.
But I feel like we got enough likes that I don't know that we're gonna have to tap into any of those.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because,
Other,
like I was saying with like the Texans game, I just felt kind of iffy with, like I said, I think it was just one of those games where maybe we're inside the number all game and then still lose.
yeah,
Just like a late score or something.
I do like confidence level is high on the Seahawks and the Bucs.
Yeah.
Those are two I'd feel pretty good locking in. Do you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah.
All right, and then let's see. Titans, Dolphins, Browns. I like that. I mean, I like the Browns and the Cowboys picks. Those are two others that I feel pretty confident with. Um, how do you feel about those being in our top 5?
Yeah. I mean, those were two that I liked. So
Yeah. All right. So Browns plus 2.5, and then Cowboys plus 5.5. Okay. All right. We got one more.
yeah, I mean, in terms of confidence, I like the Titans. I like
Yeah.
kind of just riding that, kind of riding that trend and hoping that we're right, and seeing the Titans just go on a win streak or something.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of just looking at matchups too, it's like we're inside of the number against what looks like a very bad football team.
Yeah.
Whereas like with the Dolphins Jets, like, I think as much as we like the Dolphins with Teddy Bridgewater and there's good numbers, good trends there, they're on the road, you know, with the backup QB in. So there could be, there's some questions there. And then I think obviously, you know, even though we like the Cardinals plus 5.5, I think that there's still some doubt there. I think, you're going up against a really good Eagles team. So yeah, I mean, take a good team inside of a number against a really bad one,
Yeah.
I feel pretty good with that. Okay. So we've got, let's see, and I'm just double checking to see. Looks like the numbers are the same. for all of these games between Circa and Supercontest. So yeah. All right. So final picks. We've got Seahawks plus 5.5 against the Saints. Bucs are minus 8.5 against the Falcons. Titans minus 2.5 against the Commanders. Browns getting 2.5 against the Chargers, and the Cowboys getting 5.5 against the Rams.
Yeah.
It's week 5.
Cool.
All right. I'll put them in. And this time next week we'll be 13, 11, and 1.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. Good talk. I'll see you out there.
All right.
All
I'll
right.
see you.
Later.